Welcome in. We are now live. This is what is this week 16
Week
of
16.
Bear and Balanced. Bears win another game, so that's exciting. But you had some Christmas stuff. Did you get anything for fun? Did you get anything bear related?
Uh, no, I got some socks that don't fit, and I'll have to take those back. And I got a nice coat. Not this coat, but I got a nice coat, and that was fun. It was a nice Christmas. We got a PS5 that was kind of like the family's gift to our family. So we kind of let that be the main thing. But it was nice. The kids came over, grandkids came over. We ended up doing biscuits and gravy, kind of a brunch thing, and then they all went to the other family part of the house, and we were just alone.
No, you're kind of the cook, right? Like you're kind of the guy in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
My wife's the biscuits and gravy. That's her thing. So
Okay.
she took care of that, but I had to do the potatoes. I had to do the eggs, everything else. And then we had a ham all prepped. I was going to do a ham, but then the kids like, oh, we can't do dinner. We have to do brunch. So I saved the ham, and I'm like, I'll do the ham. I might do it this week at some point with something on there. So no, but it's fun. I do like cooking. I like eating as well. So it helps.
I mean, I've always been strong in the eating category.
Yeah.
I've always, excelled on those grades. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what drove us both to the offensive line,
To the
where
offensive
that
line.
that
Yes.
behavior is encouraged and supported. So do you wanna just hop into this podcast because it
Let's do it.
was, an interesting game, but not or maybe not that interesting. I don't know. I don't know how we're gonna play this one because it was a thing, right? So we'll get
There's
into it.
one. That's
There is one. That's
exciting.
that's the
That's
headliner.
exciting.
That's the headliner. But yeah, we'll get into it. I'm curious to hear some of the answers on some of
Yeah.
these categories from you. So welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears did it. They doubled their win
Yay.
total from last season. They got another victory against one of the worst teams in the league. How you doing tonight?
Man, when you say it like that, they doubled their win total. That's like,
Doubled.
man, this regime's coming back next year. You can't let them go now. So, oh man, I don't know. It was an interesting game against the Cardinals, like a team that our staffers, we weren't unanimous. I thought we would be unanimous, all going with the Bears to win, but some of us were going Cardinals. I just didn't think the Cardinals were a good football team, and I thought the Bears would do pretty good. 21-0, right? But I don't know if you're like me. My first thought was, oh shit, here we go again. Because I just assumed they were going to blow it, but they didn't blow it. They held on, they got a dub, and doubled their win total, like you said.
Well, it was starting to head in that
It
direction,
was.
and I would
Yeah.
say that I was one of those staffers that did say that the Cardinals were going to come in and win, and I was kind of just the vibes pick. You listen to the press conference from after the Browns game. The Browns lost third time this season, something like that has happened, and the comments just seemed a little different. They
Yes.
seemed a little bit more like, hey, I just ran what was called. I don't think I'm the best person to guard David Njoku on that, right? So there was just enough where it was like, hey, this feels a little different. There's mathematical difference here. The Bears are essentially eliminated from the playoffs. I know that there's some scenarios out there that have to happen, but they're very low odds that this thing could wind up in the playoffs. And I think that does kind of stack mentally on players. These bad things happen. You're close to the end of the year, and that letdown can be, it can open up for anything to happen. So yes, on paper, the Bears are a better team than the Cardinals, but with everything that had just happened with the Browns, I think that can be deflating, and maybe they would let them into a game that they maybe shouldn't be. And again, the Bears aren't a great team, so it's not
Yeah.
like they need to, play perfect football to beat a bad team, but they're certainly susceptible to getting beat by a team like the Cardinals. So I don't know. I went out on the bad limb and said that the Bears would get upset, and it didn't happen, which that's fine. I'm perfectly happy to be. I'm wrong all the time on things like that. That
It
it's not like
happens.
I'm carrying
Yeah.
some sort of perfect record, but I'm happy to be wrong when I do pick against the Bears. So let's start off in the trenches, though. I'm very curious to see where you're going this week because on my rewatch, I had some weird thoughts, and so I want you to start and to tell me where you'd like to highlight on the trenches this week.
I got two. And that they're a package deal this week. And I'm going to go with the left side of the Bears offensive line, Braxton Jones, who bounced back after having a rough game against Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns, which is to be expected. Myles Garrett is a stud, but Braxton Jones had a rough game last week. He bounced back, had a nice game. And then left guard Cody Whitehair got the start because Tevin Jenkins is in concussion protocol. I feared the worst. Cody has not been playing very good, when he was out there. But Cody and Braxton Jones did their job. They did pretty good. It wasn't outstanding. There were no plays like, oh, wow, look at that great block. But they're just steady, slow. They were the tortoise in this game instead of the hare. They just did their job, slow and methodical. They were fine. But in this game, there was no really huge standout performances that I really saw.
I think it does have to be the offensive line because of how well the Bears ran the football. I think that it's interesting that you highlighted that. I was going to go there. I was going to talk about Cody, kind of a bounce back effort for him. Bounce back effort for Braxton is a good point. The Cardinals are the worst defense in the league. Like, we need to just establish that up front. That by all of the measures, advanced metrics, and all this stuff, the Cardinals are the worst. They give up a ton of points to everybody they play. They're a fun defense to stream in terms of prop bets and fantasy and all that kind of stuff. Okay, got that out of the way. Still, it's nice to see your offensive line sort of take control and dominate. And so this is where I was like, am I insane? I think Lucas Patrick had his best game of the year.
Yeah.
I thought he looked okay. He got to the second level. He was able to kind of stand up on his blocks. He was able to take out the linebacker on a lot of these bigger runs from Khalil Herbert. Like, I mean, again, we've prefaced this by saying this is the worst defense in the league, but Lucas Patrick, minus that one holding call, I think he had his best game of the year. So we pile on the guy. Everybody piles on the center position for the Bears. We've been talking about it for years. If they need to really invest in this and upgrade, he had a good week.
Some of those inside runs, they were keyed by Lucas Patrick blocks. First run from Herbert went for a nice big gain, and it was keyed because of Patrick getting his block. Like you said, worked the second level pretty good. He was pretty good in pass pro too. So I like that pick. Is this his first Trent's Tribute this season for Lucas Patrick? I think it might be.
I think it might be. I don't even know if he got one last year.
Probably not. Yeah,
probably not. I mean,
let's send him a T-shirt. No.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we need to make those T-shirts.
And we do need to make those. Yeah.
I also, if this was like a bowl of porridge, which we'll get to later, maybe you give like a cup of porridge, like a bowl and a cup, right? We give like a mini tribute to Kerry Blasingame. He's not a lineman, but he's a fullback, which is kind of like a lineman that's not big enough to play on the line, and they play in the backfield. I thought he had a good game. Again, the running game was the highlight of the show for the Bears this week. So anybody that helped propel that to happen, I think was key in that. So okay, well, we're on the same page there. So let's hit up our Twitter segment of the week. We both got, I think, in the same vein here, but I'm going to let you start. So what did you find on the Twitter machine this week?
Mine is from Adam Johns, of course, Bears beat guy for The Athletic, at Adam Johns. He tweeted out that Javon Dexter's pressures, hits, hurries, and sacks, first 8 games of the season was 9, but in the last 7 games, he had 16 pressures. This kind of was prompted by a tweet from Elliot Shore Parks, who is the Eagles writer, and he tweeted out the same stats for Jalen Carter. First 4 games, 20 pressures. Last 4 games, just 5. Those 2 guys are going to be kind of linked to Dexter and Carter because, of course, of the Bears trade with Darnell Wright. They traded back and let, everyone's favorite Jalen Carter head off to Philly while they got the starting right tackle and got their defensive tackle in the second round. So I thought it's a good place to kind of talk about that, how Ryan Poles basically traded back a spot for a guy he had no interest in. We've talked about this before. He had no interest in taking Jalen Carter, got his guy, got an extra 4th for next season, and then got a defensive tackle who, as rookies, has looked like the better player.
King Poles does it again.
There it is.
I believe that's what the kids say on the Twitter machine, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that Who knows, right? They're going to be linked in the minds of Bears fans, at
Yeah.
least. Right? I don't know that anybody else is necessarily going to link them, or maybe, in 5, 6 years, you look back and you say like, oh, here were the defensive tackles in this draft class. Like that might be how they're linked, but certainly Bears fans are gonna remember this and think about it. And if Poles is able to get any kind of comparable value out of that trade back and this player, for what was considered at the time a bit of a character risk, and maybe still is, I don't know, in Jalen Carter. But on the field, Jalen Carter shot out in the of a cannon in the first part of the season. Like you say, looked like that original tweet was saying, oh, it looks like he's maybe hitting a bit of a rookie wall.
Yeah.
It's kind of the opposite is happening with Dexter, where it looks like he's really being unlocked in the last few weeks. Is it that he's picking things up a little bit? He's seeing, I mean, it's defensive lineman. It's a read and react position, but there's still a little bit like incorporating him in more there. But,
Montez Sweat, yeah.
Is it with Sweat? Is it with, and we'll kind of highlight what I've got with our friend Jacob Infante at Jacob Infante 24. He says Montez Sweat is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Dexter is one of the best rookie defensive linemen this year. Andrew Billings, our guy, Andrew Billings is a good run stuffer. I'm gonna correct him. He's a great run stuffer who generates pressure as a one technique. And Zach Pickens has shown flashes as a developmental piece. The Bears defensive line has really transformed. So I was at Jacob Infante 24 on the Twitter machine. And I think that I wanted to highlight this because when we talked about the defensive line coming in this year, huge question marks, right? We were much more comfortable with the upgrades in the offensive line. Again, minus the center position, we thought that there was a chance that they could really form a pretty cohesive and decent unit. The defensive line was a huge question mark, and they really struggled last year. Certainly were struggling to get pass rush until Montez Sweat came in. But this unit's cooking right now.
Yeah, they're playing really good. I mean, those are good building blocks for the future of this team, no matter who's coaching next year. That's a good group to have. DeMarcus Walker's under contract for the year. He's playing good football. Justin Jones got a sack this last week. He's been playing better of late. I'm not sure if he may have one more year on his deal. I forget exactly the numbers in that, but I wouldn't mind seeing him stick around. He's looked pretty good too. I think the D line as a whole, you're still an edge rusher away, because you want to have another guy opposite Sweat to kind of do some damage. Yannick Ngakoue, we thought was going to be that guy. He just didn't really, really live up to what everyone hoped. He's hurt now. Maybe he comes back. Maybe he likes what they're building here in Chicago, and maybe he's tired of signing one-year deals. Maybe he wants to come back if they'll have him.
Would you sign him? Would you re-sign him?
I think I would. I mean, I think if you look at what he did, I mean, he was one of the few guys that got pressure early. Obviously, when Sweat came, he picked up a couple more pressures. I think at some point you're going to have to re-sign another edge, another veteran, but you're also going to have to look for the draft. So why not double dip? Bring back Ngakoue if he's healthy and he checks out medically. Get a guy hopefully earlier in the draft that you can come in and get after the quarterback. Then this D-line looks pretty damn good next year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Plenty of draft talk to come.
Yes.
Do you go offense? You go defense? All this kind of stuff. The answer is probably yes, right? Just more good players.
Yeah.
But we'll certainly get into that, and we'll leave that for another time. But let's move on to caught up in a numbers game stats. I actually kind of looked at some big picture stuff. So I'm curious where you went this week. Let's start with you.
93.8%. That is the highest single season field goal percentage in team history of, course, Cairo Santos in 2020. Nice. This season, he's right there, man. 93.5%, which is the second best, in a season in Bears history. So he's got a chance to eclipse his own record. And just as an FYI, he's also third all time when he was 91.3% last year. So the Bears recently re-signed Santos to another contract. He has been the best field goal kicker in Chicago Bears history. So that's a well-deserved extension for Santos there.
Did you see the tweet from one of the PFF analytics guys that and then this guy got into a little bit of an argument with a Packers fan?
Yes.
A Packers fan was defending the Bears resigning Santos, like, oh, hey, dude, like he's been really good. Like,
Yeah.
what's your problem? And this analytics guy's like, oh, he just suddenly learned how to kick over 50 yards. And it's like, hey, nerd, like maybe look up from your spreadsheet and
Yeah.
watch a game and realize this guy's made some legitimate games here, gains in his distance, kicking distance, which you can see in his kickoffs,
Yep.
right? And then he's coming back like, well, small sample size. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't be that nerd and try to claim small like you're above this and the small
Yeah.
oh, that's not enough to tell. You can tell that he's got more distance on his kicks if you watch games, which I'm not convinced that this guy did.
Well, he's like 78% touchback rate, which I think is his highest of the year. He's 6 for 6 on field goals, 50 yards plus this year. He only missed one 50-yard plus last year. I think what this guy was trying to do was make a joke about how the Bears didn't want to kick a field goal last week from 55 in the wind. I think that's what he was going for at first. And then when he realized now he's into it with an argument, he's got to be right because some analytic guys have to be right about certain things. So it was just a strange argument he got into. But man, Cairo Santos, man, let's do it. It's another one of those Ryan Pace guys that pulls extended.
Yes, I mean, like I'm all for Santos. I'm all for the thing. I find it objectively hilarious that a Packers fan
Yeah.
was defending the Bears extending Santos.
They're
And
not
there
all
was like
bad out there.
a 6 back and forth
Yeah.
on Twitter with this guy. I mean, that website, although, a tire fire at times, and maybe most of the time, is still free and it's still entertaining if you know where to look. So that was my only point. All right. Flip it around for me. I mean, uh 2,132 compared to 1,210. Those are my numbers. 2,132 yards rushing for the Chicago Bears on offense this year. That is second in the league. They led the league last year, if I remember correctly. They are second in the league currently to Baltimore. Let me read to you the
They're
team.
still second. That's surprising me. I never would have thought they'd have been still.
I think they jumped back up to second after this last week because they had a good week. But
nice.
let me read to you the top 10 teams in rushing. Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco, Miami, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Atlanta, Arizona, the Rams. Most of those teams are good teams that sit on leads that are milking clock at the end of the game, right? And they have good running games too. Like Baltimore's got Lamar, they've got that dynamic. Plus, Baltimore's won all the games, so they're sitting on leads at the end.
Yeah.
San Francisco, they've got McCaffrey. They've won a ton of games. They're sitting on leads at the end. Detroit, they've got a really great offensive line. They're sitting on leads at the end. Chicago's in there, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. Okay, flip it around. The other number, 1,210. That's the number of yards that the Bears have given up on the ground. That is first in the league. Let me read to you the teams on this. Chicago, New England, not a very good team. San Francisco, Detroit, Miami, Houston, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Cleveland. There's a lot of good defenses in there. There's a lot of good football teams in there. Why? Because they sit on leads and teams can't run the ball against them. They have to throw. Okay. So what is this team doing with only 6 wins? They are so good at running the ball and they are so good at stopping the run. And they're not, the game flow isn't impacting those numbers. This is fighting the game flow, right? Like the Bears are not winning a lot of games and sitting on leads, right? And so you're not getting that influence of that. They're so good at these things. They're not. What's the difference, Lester?
I have no idea. This is interesting.
Coaching.
I'm into. Oh, there it is.
Should
Okay.
be 9-6. It's driving me nuts.
I was trying to wrap my head around the whole concept. Like what? Like why aren't they? Yeah, it's. You mentioned game flow. That's a big part of it. A lot of it is a game flow with Getsy. For this last game's a good example. In the second half, as the Bears were piddling away that 3-score lead, they're doing a lot of throwing the ball. And I'm like, why are they throwing the ball here? I think they did like 2 3 and outs with 6 straight passes. And I'm like, why? They're gashing them on the run. Why are they going away from what's working at the time? Yeah, that's a good point. That's scheme, that's coaching, it's not having a good flow for what your offense can do.
I think that man sits with a call sheet that he dreamed up over the week and just goes to the next one. And if something works, he's just like, oh, that's cool. And then he just goes on to the next play. Like there's no like, hey, this really worked and this didn't. And I'm going to branch off based on what they're giving me, but based on what they're taking away. Like there's not that next level of play calling that you see with some of these better play callers where they're going to just keep hammering these things. He's like, okay, cool, that worked. Let's go to the next thing on my list that has nothing to do with what just worked. And that drives me nuts. That's not the point of the stat, but that's the point of the Getsy, right? I just to kind of follow up though, kind of a two-parter in this stat of the week. What's interesting is that this is not dominate on the offensive side of things. On the defense side of things, we've talked about it. Billings is really good at stopping the run. Montez Sweat's one of the better run stopping defensive ends in the game. He's really, helped that part of the defense as well. Like there's some really good pieces here. The Bears have built this with a preference to try to stop the run and try to have the secondary hold up. Okay. On offense, this is not because they have Christian McCaffrey looking to try to set a record on yards from scrimmage, right? Like this, they don't have like the best back in the league or anything like that. Justin Fields isn't setting a record this year.
No.
Like he was last year. He has 585 yards rushing that leads the team. Second is Khalil Herbert. He has 459 after his nice game this last week, but he's missed a bunch of time, right? Deontay Foreman has come in. He has 425 yards this year. Again, he's now missed some time. He missed the first part of the year because he was just inactive behind, but he wasn't playing yet. And then Roschon Johnson, the rookie, has 311 yards rushing. So it doesn't necessarily matter who's been running these are good, talented running backs. We like these guys a lot. We thought this was going to be a strength of the team, but this is a really good sign for this offensive line, for these guys that are going to be coming back. Like it doesn't necessarily matter who's back there. There's been yards to have in the run game.
Some of that also is the threat of Fields, which way we see some of these holes open up on these zone reads that he does. And which is why we've been asking for more. I mean, again, we go back to, why aren't you doing more of things that work well? We saw it in the Cardinals game, a nice play where Fields kind of does the zone read, the things kind of part because the flow are more afraid of Fields getting around the edge than they are with the running back up the gut. So why aren't there more of those things when you have a dynamic athlete at quarterback?
Again, cool, that worked. Let's go to the next thing. It doesn't have anything.
Exactly. Oh man.
All right.
The Bears won this game. This is such a.
I know. This year has
it is. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Let's move on to the Fields report. 15 of 27 for 170 yards. He one touchdown, one interception, one sack for no yards, which, okay.
I hate those.
Those are the worst. 9 carries for 97 yards on the ground. So very dynamic there. Had a big scramble that was called back from that Lucas Patrick hold, which would have, all other things being equal, if he would have gotten one of those, he would have been over 100 yards. But short of that, with a 97-yard effort, really nice ground gainers, though. A couple of design runs, a couple of scrambles, looked really good there. Passing game, I didn't think was necessarily quite there. He threw a couple, I think they would be called turnover-worthy plays, including the one that was picked. But I love when he does scramble, but keeps his eyes downfield and fires the ball downfield. There's a couple plays there, including the touchdown to Mercedes Lewis in the end zone. So what'd you think of Fields?
He had a nice game. The pick obviously hurts because it comes at a stupid time. You're in the red zone. You're kind of going on to ice it. You're in field goal range. You're going to get at least 3 out of it. And that play, double coverage, looked like he was a little bit late on it. He may have had a chance to go to the post. I think it was DJ Moore. Again, that would have been a chancy play. But if you're going to throw that pass on that wheel route, back when I coached, we always say it's our guy or no guy. Like when you're going to throw those type of plays in the end zone, you got to throw it to a point where only your guy has a chance at it. And he didn't. He kind of underthrew it, and it sucks because the rest of his game was fine. The rushing was spectacular. His percentage was a little bit low, but it was a nice game overall. But that damn pick, that's what people want to think. They'll think about that pick when thinking about the Cardinals game.
They certainly will. And again, I would probably prefer to take a chance like that at a DJ Moore or another wide receiver. I am number one Khalil Herbert fan, but 5'9" Khalil Herbert running that route with double coverage is that's a tight window to try to fit it into. And obviously he was undercut by the corner on that interception. So that is a tough one to end on. But again, he has such a dynamic skill set. Just would love to see somebody say, we're gonna see what we can do to build around this thing that doesn't seem like more than maybe one other quarterback has. Let's see what we can build around this. I don't know if you watch Lamar. Lamar is so much fun to watch, and then you watch Fields, and you're like, I mean, how hard would it be to try to just look at what Baltimore's doing and try to just do that? Apparently, it's too hard.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of the Field Report. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of this, we're going to get into everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester. Three Bears. Hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. This was a victory, so it's a little harder on the cold bowl. Particularly, nothing really stood out, but and plenty of options for the hot bowl, I think. I took the obvious one, but where did you
go? Probably the obvious one, too. Career high 107-yard receiving for Cole Kmet on his 4 first half receptions. He looked good, man. I mean, he's just does his thing. He just keeps making plays. He's not the dynamic athlete that some of these other younger move tight ends are to come in the league, but for what he's asked to do, he produces. And speaking of career highs, 70 catches, 678 yards. Those are both career highs for him. You heard him talk about in the broadcast how he passed Greg Olsen for 5th all-time in the franchise for receiving yards by a tight end. Here's another one for you. 208 catches now on his career. That is 3rd all-time among Chicago tight ends, tied with Martellus Bennett. So one more catch, he'll pass him and be only behind now Des Clark and Mike Ditka.
I would have guessed Des Clark and Mike Ditka. So yeah.
I didn't let you guess. That was a home run.
No, that's fine. Because I'd hate to be wrong on the. But I was trying to prepare my guesses. I think the Ditka answer is the obvious one, but I was like, I think it's Des. All right, the obvious one, Trent Gill had a game, man. Had a game.
Career high, longest punt of his career. Yeah,
he's the embattled punter. He's been struggling. He's been struggling a bit. They call out on the lowest net in the league and all this kind of stuff. Gill had a game. Very happy for him. It's not my real. I mean, I wanted to mention it, but my real pick is actually the return of Khalil Herbert.
Okay.
I'm very happy about, again, number one Khalil Herbert fan. 20 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Probably could have been a little bit more if they would have fed him a little bit. I mean, like, he had it, right? Again, worst defense in the league. I wasn't sure if he was ready for it because he just hasn't looked the same since coming back from injury, but I thought he looked pretty crisp and ready to go. Looked like he was finally ready, finally back from that. So very happy to see Khalil Herbert. Like to see if he can do a little bit of damage here against Atlanta, who ranks about in the middle of the league against the run. And then Green Bay, they actually are one of the worst teams in the league against the run. So that'll be a very interesting matchup for him and for this Bears offense to see if they can get some yardage on the ground. So
Khalil Herbert, I referenced Khalil Herbert on my Just Right. This is what you want to see out of him. I mean, he had an outstanding game. Like you said, being back from the injury. I don't think he was healthy the last few weeks.
No.
His usage was down. I understand they're playing. The Viking game was a blitz happy team. You want a better pass blocker in there. But still, overall, his usage was down. And this is a guy that's explosive. I mean, when 5.6 yards per carry this week. I mean, that's kind of where he's been when he's in there playing healthy. So, yeah, I like that pick with Khalil Herbert.
I know you could say Just Right, and that would be a totally fair way to go because we do expect that of him, but he hasn't been that lately.
It's been a while.
And so, I was kind of waiting for that. I really thought this was the game to break out. I almost put a prop bet on him, but I pulled it back at the last minute because I just didn't. I thought maybe they're going to just go with Roschon. Maybe they're going to, so I pulled back. I did put a Fields prop bet in, which cashed, and I put a DJ Moore prop bet in, which did not because he got hurt. So that is what it is. It happens. Flip it around. Cold bowl or porridge. Where'd you go?
I think I mentioned him either last week or the week prior to that. That's Dominic Robinson. He's your
Who?
fourth edge. Dominic Robinson, exactly. 18 snaps. He did not scratch the stat sheet again. I kind of went back and rewatched the game. I saw him drop into coverage a couple times. He didn't really do much with pressuring. He's just out there. I mean, I like the pick when it was made. But you can see why he was inactive for so much of this season. He just has not taken a step in his sophomore season. I mean, he's under contract. He's reasonably priced. I'm sure he'll be around for the offseason, but his roster spot's definitely in jeopardy, for 2024.
Yeah, I love it when you bring up guys, and I'm always like, oh yeah, did he play? Like,
Yeah.
like it's one of those where you have to go look at the snap counts.
Yeah.
And like whereas a lot of times I'm looking at the stat sheet. Well, if a guy doesn't show up at the stat sheet, then like he's not even gonna be on my radar. So you'd be like, hey, he played 40 snaps and didn't require like, oh crap. Yeah, I guess you're right. So yeah, the Al-Qadi Muhammad Award once again. I
That's the thing. Yeah.
It was such a weird game to rewatch because it felt like the Bears got out quick, and then they were like, "Hey, everybody, let's just try to hold on to this thing. Like,
Yeah.
and they just kind of throttled down, and it was just this like it was this an Eberflus or Getsy or both kind of thing where like we're just going to go super conservative now, like we're just going to hug it tight, and that's my cold bull. Like at some point you got to learn to just break it open as opposed to just try to hold on for dear life. You almost let the Cardinals come back. I mean, it was a one score game and Cardinals had the ball. Like they absolutely could have come down, tied that thing up. I I don't know that this is ever going to get fixed with this coaching
No.
staff, right? Like this is just who they are. This is in their DNA. And sometimes it works out, right? Like sometimes like, yeah, you hold on. It's not a very good football team. So you're able to hold on. And we've seen it multiple times where it doesn't work out, where the things break. And so I it's hard. It's a win. We try to be balanced, hot bowl, cold bowl, all that kind of stuff. To me, it's just that conservative mindset of like, we're just going to try to hold on here. When you absolutely could have broken it open, run up the stats. They just chose to not do that.
It's funny because we talk about how they're conservative, but earlier we talked about how they didn't stick to the run enough. So it's like you think, they're doing weird things. It's the game flow. If they would have just kind of kept pounding it and kind of kept playing things off of the run game, they would have put up more points for sure, and then would have put this game away. It's like we talked about, you're doing good at this. Let's keep doing this, build off that, and then we'll just bury them. But the Bears can't bury anyone. And I really thought they were going to blow this game. I thought, here it is, a fourth time, a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. They're going to screw it up. And that's got to be in their minds too, as coaches. And then as players, is that affecting the players? It's like, are they playing tight? Are they nervous and think it's going to happen? I mean, they're human. It's human nature to kind of think, oh my God, here we go again. It's rough. I mean, like you said, though, this coaching staff, they're not getting it done.
It's a fair point. I don't know how much they were throwing downfield. You're right. I think that a lot of that was just these kind of underneath dump offs.
They can dunk stuff. Yeah.
So I mean, those are just long handoffs to me. But
Yeah.
like you say, why aren't you doing the things that have been working well,
Yeah.
right? Okay, just right, the just right bowl for you this week. What do you got?
You kind of mentioned a little bit Herbert. We talked about the run game earlier, and that's my just right, is this running game. 250 yards rushing on 39 carries. Herbert 5.6 yards a pop. Fields over 10. Roshan Johnson 4.1. Velus Jones had a 4-yard run too. So when the Bears are running the ball, like I knew they were running good. I didn't know they were as good as they were second in the league, but run the ball. This is who you are as a team. This is your identity you built last year. Keep it up. And then, there's only 2 games left, so I guess it is what's going to happen now. We don't know, but this should have been at the forefront of what you want to do offensively. And I don't know what the hell they want to do offensively this year.
No, they did build an identity last year. It was the running game, right? And then you come into this year and you're like, hey, they actually look like they have improved on the thing that they were really, really good at. And then they just don't really like that never has felt like an identity. You're fair in saying and questioning whether or not really they're second. because it has not felt
Didn't,
like an
yeah.
identity the whole year, almost in spite of things, right? Which is interesting. And then again, this is not led by some heroic effort from one person. This isn't Justin Fields running for over 1,000. It's not, this is really sort of balanced and not because they're sitting on a leads. Like it's kind of amazing, right? They're pretty far behind Baltimore. Baltimore's kind of way out front, but they could absolutely finish this season at number 2 because again they play one bad rush defense and an average rush defense to close the year. So they absolutely could finish, top 2, which is really impressive. So absolutely good, just right bowl here. And you know what? That offensive line deserves all of the good things for performances like this. So good on you for thinking of them. I had Kyler Gordon recorded a sack, had a pass defense, 7 tackles. It's what we expect. He's just all over the field. It's fun to watch him make plays all over the place. He's athletic. He's turning into the player I think that Ryan Poles envisioned when he made him his first overall selection in the 2nd round. So I don't know. He's fun to watch, and he's the type of player that I've always wanted the Bears to have, which is someone who can just kind of play everywhere and make plays up and down the field.
High energy, he brings a lot of passion to the game. You see it when he makes plays. He's really animated. That's what you like. Those kind of guys on defense are great. And like you said, he's all over the field. I think last week he was our hot bolt because of how great he was last week. Awesome year this year for Kyler Gordon, and he's your nickel, but that's a starter these days. And then for the first time ever, the AP All-Pro team, they're having a nickelback this year, which is interesting. And they're actually going back to having a fullback this year. So 12 offense, 12 defense for the All-Pro first team NFL voting this year.
That's what it should be.
I think it's All-Pro. It should be, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it should be. Good stuff. All right. Hey, we have not talked about the Carolina Panthers. No, you don't want to?
No, that's good. I like it.
Okay. So just real quick before we close, because, we ran through those categories fast. Carolina Panthers lost to the Green Bay Packers. Now, I put out a tweet in the morning, and I said, ugh, it's that time again. It's that time, Bears fan, not again. It's that time, Bears fans. And it was basically like, you gotta cheer for the Packers to win this one. And I got the craziest diversity of responses. and I'm going somewhere with this. There were a number of people that were like, yeah, I hate it, but you know what? If it helps my team, I'll do it. Right. And those were the minority. Now, the tweet got some play. It got some love from, some other fan bases, obviously the Packers fans, but other NFC North fan bases, kind of got a hold of it. I mean, it went in different directions. But Bears fans, by and large, did not like this idea. They have no interest in ever considering saying, yes, I want Green Bay to win a game, ever. Like, this is like, I want the meteor to take out both, like that kind of thing. Like, they cannot do it. So this brings me to my point, Lester. Do Bears fans like the Chicago Bears more or less than they hate the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah.
Because at some point, you have, in my opinion, if it helps the Bears, then I'm for it. And this undeniably helped the Chicago Bears was to have Green Bay win that game. So I've just, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Like if it brings you more enjoyment to hate Green Bay than it does to like the Bears, that's fine. That's fan how you want to fan. I just think it's interesting that this has revealed itself in such a fun way because it had nothing to do with the Bears. This was the Panthers and the Packers playing. So I ask you, what do you think? Do you think Bears fans hate Green Bay more than they like Chicago?
There's another level to this, which we didn't really talk about. That's the Justin Fields level. Some fans are afraid of Carolina getting that first overall pick because they don't want to see their favorite player get traded. They don't want that to happen because when I see everyone coming, they were coming at you there. Jacob had a tweet out there. Bill, I think I had a tweet out there. Same thing. I saw the same thing, and it was, never against the Packers. What if the Bears, someday the Bears might be good again? It might happen.
Could happen.
Let's say week 18, the Bears are playing the Lions, right? Packers playing the Vikings. The Bears need a Packers win over the Vikings so the Bears could have the first overall seed in the playoffs or win the conference. Are you going to be like, no, I want the Packers to win and ruin the Bears' playoff chances?
Yeah.
Like what? So I think a lot of the stuff is just, oh no, don't do it because then you might trade my favorite player. But then I ask you this: are they fans of the players? Or are they fans of the laundry? Like, what are you cheering for here? That's actually this week's SB Nation Reacts question that I'm going to publish a little later tonight is if the Bears trade away or don't re-sign your favorite player, will you still be a fan of the Bears? Because the civil war going on Twitter and social rough. Media and the talk radio, it's very strange. You know, I want Fields to stay. I like Justin Fields, but I understand it's a business. It may not happen. I'm not going to get all salty and start crying like a little baby on Twitter and being mad at people and attacking people. How dare you have this opinion that different from mine? You like what? Who cares? It's just very strange how personal people take the whole Justin Fields debate.
Well, and I think you're getting at, and again, I think this is a good conversation. It's an interesting conversation because I think you're getting at something that I like to call the purity test. And what I find interesting about this particular question, because again, I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. I'm not trying to claim that I know, this is how you should do things. Like, again, fan how you want to fan. We've been very consistent about that. But there are a number of people that believe that they're administering a fan purity test when it comes to this Green Bay thing or the Justin Fields thing, right? And it's like, you're not a real fan if you're cheering for Green Bay. And I think, why do you think that makes you a more pure fan than someone who's saying, I want this to happen because it helps my team? Like, so I don't understand that part of it either. And I also think, like, if you're trying to administer fan purity tests, look yourself in the mirror and be like, would you want that to happen to you? Like fan how you want to fan, enjoy the game. This should be fun. This is something we do as a hobby. Like this is not something that you should be taking so personally and getting angry at people on the internet. Don't be angry on the internet anyway, but definitely don't be angry at other like fans of your own fan base. That's not good. And if you want to attack us, that's fine. We're used to it. But, maybe think about that in the future too. Okay. That's all I want to do. That's all I wanted to say. I thought it was interesting. It was
a very interesting conversation for sure. It's just, it's dominated, like Greg Gabriel tonight wrote an article on WCG and, he kind of goes back and forth a bit based on, what he feels each week. But this week he's kind of like, I think you keep Justin Fields. I think he's shown enough, and he thinks it's time to keep him, maybe trade the first overall pick. And if they get it for a haul, which that trade would be a absolute haul if they do trade that way and go with Fields, ride it out. Tomorrow morning, Josh, one of our other writers, he has an article coming out. He's not so sure. He hasn't seen enough.
The other way.
He's going the other way. So it's good to have different viewpoints, and we've had them for sure on this show. We've had them for sure on the sites, on the podcast channel. Regardless of what the Bears do, like I said, I want to see Fields. I'm a Fields fan. But regardless of what they do, I'll still be watching the Bears on noon, week 1 kickoff, no matter who the quarterback is.
You are the guy that taught me the phrase, I cheer for the laundry.
Cheer for the laundry,
So that's, and I just thought you were really enthusiastic about your whites and your, your jeans, your denim load, and you're doing the towels, but no, you meant navy and orange. So,
navy and orange.
Love it. Good philosophy. And again, I actually don't think that that doesn't mean that you can't cheer for players that leave, right? Yeah. There are people that follow ex-Bears wherever they go. There's people that love a college team, and whoever they get drafted to, they follow those players. So there's nothing wrong. Like, or just guys that you like. I cheer for LaDainian Tomlinson. I cheer for Marshawn Lynch. I just loved these guys because I liked their style. I liked watching them play. I didn't care who they played for. I cheered for those guys, right? So like that can happen too. Again, there's a lot of entryways into football. There's no wrong way to do it. But I don't love the like throwing stones at other people. We can probably stop that.
I
Want to get out of here?
We're out of here.
All right, man. We'll stick around for the YouTube questions. If you ever want to join us for that, we hang out. It's usually on Mondays. Today it's on Tuesday, but Mondays at 6:00 Central Time. Come hang out in the comment section and mix it up with a lot of our regulars, and it's a good time. So until next time, bear down. Chris was never worried.
I saw that when I'm like, how, Chris, if you're still in there, how are you never worried with the Bears would lose? Because they've done it 3 times this year. And, I just assumed it was going to happen. And, but I'm with you. The energy seemed low. I know she was at the game. So, I mean, she mentioned that there as well. So, yeah, the energy seemed kind of down from the players. And it's interesting.
Let's see. I think this was a
okay. Come on.
Response. You got your dog in there, or
the
you got
ferret,
that? Oh, you're showing the ferret
is loose. The ferret is making noise.
The geriatric ferret that you have.
Yeah, it's very old, very bald. Go run around and play. See ya.
I'm not going to hold bald against anybody. That's all I'm saying. So I think this was like, how does this happen? When we're talking about that, it's like coaching, turnovers, and penalties, which in some ways is a reflection of penalties for sure, reflection of coaching. A lot of times, I don't know about that. Everybody has injuries, so.
There were some injuries early on, but honestly, this Bears team was not prepared to play football week 1 against.
They're not very deep either. Yeah, I think a lot of it probably goes back to that coaching stuff that was happening with the Alan Williams stuff and all that. But yeah, Chris hits it here. 9 wins. Man, I think this is probably what keeps bothering me is that when we've talked about this, that we really kind of nailed what the division looked like, what the conference looked like, what the schedule looked like, and the talent level of this team. Like, I feel like we had everything dialed in, and they just haven't been able to close. And it's just that's so frustrating. I think that our job should be more like talking about what we saw and like reporting. Like that's kind of what it, and analyzing. Like that's kind of what it's supposed to be. And then, but everybody wants predictions, right? And so then you really try to think about it and you kind of lay it out. And we laid out our case, and we were like pretty optimistic relative to a lot of people. But I think everything we said was right, except it's going to come down to these collapses is what's going to be the difference. That's frustrating. I like to be right on the predictions, even if I don't put a lot of stock into it.
We both had them in the playoffs. We both had them sneaking in. So if they don't choke away those 3 games, if they have a better game plan week 1, I mean, it's the Packers week 1. That can go either way. I thought they'd win that, but hey, the first Vikings game, that's a game the Bears never should have lost. They had a horrendous game plan. Oh, Todd Bowles likes to blitz us. We have no idea. We're not prepared for that. It's like, that's another horrific game plan the coaching staff blew. So yeah, this team should have 4 more wins minimum.
I agree.
If they don't choke away and have a competent coaching staff, this team has got 10 wins.
Yeah, it's not crazy. They should be 10-5. Yep.
No,
I agree. Yeah, I did. And again, I don't see these comments during the show because it's like in a different section. So
he gave it afterwards. He gave it after you said it. He was happy for you. He was cheering you on for giving props to the guillotine.
Yeah. It's becoming under fire. And when you give a guy a nickname, that it's officially a nickname.
Official a nickname now, yeah.
Right. Like people come at me. People tag me when he doesn't do well. He shanks a punt. I get tagged on Twitter, and it's like, hey, what do you want from me? It's funny. It was funny. We'll see. Well, I mean, everybody will get evaluated after the season. He's on a rookie contract. Like, more than likely, he's your punter for the next couple of years anyway, just because are you really going to invest more draft capital? You're going to keep investing in this guy. I'm sure they like him as a person. It's probably a few things that they need to tweak to his game. If he can add a little bit a little bit of distance, regularly. That would be good. If he can add that little drawback or
Yeah.
side spin or whatever, which I feel like he did on one of those. Um, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I mean, I'm there. I'm not, and until it's closed out, I'm gonna feel the same way. But Jacksonville, like they're in a must win.
They're playing for something still.
They're
Yeah.
playing for their division. Like they have to win out at this point. Like they got to turn this around. They've lost some tough games. They've lost some games they shouldn't have. This is one that like they're at home. They've got to get right. And so I know that Lawrence may or may not play, but I just man, they're 7-point favorites. Until this week, the Panthers offense looked like one of the worst offensive I've ever seen. Like they just couldn't, Andy Dalton had like a decent output for them
Yeah.
early in the year, but every other game, particularly any game that Young has started, like he's no output. So I feel good. Now, a week from now, maybe that'll change. A week from now, maybe we'll be like, oh crap. Especially if Tampa Bay wins this week and clinches the division because they're out in front. So if they beat the Saints, like they clinch the South, they may sit their starters and just use week 18 as a bye week.
Yeah.
And so it really is this game super, super important.
Huge.
I'm very
Weird things tend to happen week 18. So you want to get it locked up, figured out now.
Get it locked up.
So if Trevor Lawrence can't go, you know what? Then lean on Etienne. Let that guy, carry your offense and carry my fantasy team to a victory, hopefully, too.
This is very funny. Someone has now given me a cold bowl porridge.
That's your first one, I think.
I just personally don't think that I hold the keys to give a fan purity test. Like it's not my role to tell people how to fan. And so like I don't either way, but like it was very strong that there were a number of people that it just felt like, no, like I hate the Packers more than I care about helping the Bears in this situation. So I just found it interesting. Again, no judgments, just interesting. I didn't really respond. I didn't get into it with anybody. I just like, okay, that's fascinating.
Someday, I'm telling you, someday the Bears will be good. Someday the Bears will be week 18. They will need a Packers win to clinch something.
It'll happen.
And I'm going to go back and I'm going to look for, I'm not a receipt puller, but I'm going to go back and look for stuff people said and say, okay, I remember you said never root for the Packers. Now look at you now rooting for the Packers to give the Bears that dub and that division clincher.
Point out the last part of this. Bears need to build around Fields, get rid of okay, that's a lot of the fan base feels that way.
Oh, the tweets.
And then Caleb Williams liked the tweet that said the Bears should draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Does Chicago have any experience with a great athlete that would use whatever they could for motivation? Is there anybody in Chicago's history that played any of the major sports that would, manufacture things against them to get them motivated? And anybody come to mind? Like, there's a lot of ways to interpret somebody. Again, you just talked about keeping receipts.
Yeah.
Right. Like, do you think that he's really trying to send a message through Twitter that the Bears shouldn't draft him?
There was a tweet, speaking of liking tweets, he had one today where it was flip side. He liked something else, talking about how him going to Chicago or something. He liked that.
Yeah.
I think he just, he sees stuff. People tag him because he's a pro athlete, he gets tagged in a lot of stuff. So he just likes tweets. And
is it him?
Yeah.
A lot of people have account managers.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times, again, you get tagged in a bunch of stuff. You're just, you like it. I remember early in Twitter, and I was either tagged in or I tagged Brian Urlacher. I don't tag people very often. I feel like I made a comment, or maybe I quote tweeted an Urlacher tweet or something, and he liked it and then maybe responded, and I got really excited.
Yeah.
I was like, this is cool. Brian Urlacher just interacted with me. And then I realized there's maybe a 20% chance that Brian Urlacher was actually it could have just been somebody that runs his account. They have people that do these things. So not to burst anybody's bubble, right? And hopefully I didn't like ruin anybody's day with that. But like a lot of these athletes are, that's not necessarily them, right? So there's that. And it doesn't mean anything unless he says something directly. I'm not going to take anything. I'm not going to do the social media. Oh, he took down all references to his, like, stop. Like, let's. Oh, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that around here. That's not my thing. What else we got? All right, so Chris is going to fire Flus. We'll probably get into some more commentary there eventually, and then the new head coach gets the bigger quarterback.
Yeah, there was a back and forth about. She said she's pretty sure Fields is gone. Someone says, "How do you know? Who said this?" And her response is, "Because Flus is gone, and if you get rid of Flus, I mean, if you're a new head coach coming in and you're being hired by the Chicago Bears, I hope they don't say, hey, you have to stick with Fields. I hope they have an option. Maybe he wants to stick with Fields. Maybe that's his guy. So be it. But we've talked about this as well. It's logical. Line it up. Get your guy. He's a rookie. You're the first year head coach. Line things up together. Just makes the most sense.
Gino says take the Texans approach, elite quarterback and top defensive guy in the top 10. I mean, Bears might not have a top 10 pick with their own pick. They may. What about a quarterback and a wide receiver, right? Like, I think at this point you've already spent a lot on the defensive side. You do, I think, need another defensive end somewhere, but you can maybe find that. It's a little harder to find those elite wide receivers. Then this is a good wide receiver class. EJ was talking about how good that is. So again, there's some interesting routes here, and of course, there's always the option that they do try to trade down a little bit and acquire.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite is they trade back that pick, and because there's gonna be quarterbacks are always overdrafted, and there's looking like there's 4 now. They're probably going to be slipping in the first round. If there's a third or fourth guy sitting there at wherever the Bears end up, someone's going to want to come up and get him, and they're going to pay you a lot for it. And if the Bears already have that position addressed, they can make hay with a lot of draft picks for the next several years.
I'm going to end on this one. This kind of wraps it all up, I think. And we've talked about this a little bit. And I've definitely talked about it with EJ, but Ethan says, if Flus returns, do you stick with Fields or do you move on to a rookie? I'd rather have a clean slate with coaches if we get a new quarterback. So the first decision that's going to be made is the coaching staff, right? Yeah. You don't have to decide on the quarterback until later, but you do need to decide on the quarterback right away. And there's some interesting back and forth, like, hey, they're taking these last games to evaluate. I think they probably know, and maybe they are thinking about these last couple of games, but there's a reason why. They call it Black Monday, right? Like all these coaches are fired the day after the last day of the regular season, so or that last day, right? They're notified on Sunday, so decisions are made at earlier. So I would think that most of this is already figured out. Now the Bears play the Packers. There's always these emotions. So hopefully the emotions taken out of that, because you would like that to be a rational decision, particularly for moving on from a coach early. So if Flus is going to be gone, I think that decision's probably already made. I could be wrong, but I think that's probably already made. And so I think we'll find that out soon, right? We'll know in a couple of weeks whether or not he's coming back. Now, if they're choosing to bring him back, I have a hard time continuing this wheel.
Yeah.
And I've had some conversations with some people who've done some analysis of well, it doesn't mean established coaches can certainly draft a quarterback and be sure. Is this an established coach though? This doesn't seem to me like a very good coach. So I kind of keep coming back to that. And so then you say, would the number 1 overall pick drive you to fire Eberflus because he wouldn't be the right coach to coach a number 1 overall drafted quarterback? So then you kind of you play it from the other way. I think you have more than enough evidence to just get rid of this coaching staff now. I've made my decision a few weeks ago that I had seen enough, right? If you decide the other way, or you're still questioning, does having the number 1 pick maybe drive you to make a different decision? Or do you think I trust Matt Eberflus to go out and get a different coordinator or stick with this coordinator to like that's hard for me. So I think it's easier to me to believe that Ryan Poles would say, okay, we got this team competitive, but it underperformed. I would really like to move on. I would like to conduct all of the interviews as opposed to conducting only 3 interviews with a short list of approved candidates from George McCaskey and consultants. And so I'm going to go out with the new situation that we find ourselves in, which is a healthy cap that I have helped produce, and with healthy amount of draft capital, which I have helped create, right? And with this roster that looks interesting and feisty, right? Like that I have helped put together. Now I can go out and interview everybody that I would like to interview and hire the coach that works best for me. Like that makes so much football logic sense to me that I don't see why Ryan Poles wouldn't do that. Now, you bring that guy in, and that guy is like, this is the guy that is mind meld with Ryan Poles. And this guy says, I would really love to keep Justin Fields, and I think we could do this. And he convinces him. Great. I also believe that that's hard to imagine that will happen. And so I think that I would love to draft Caleb or Drake May. And then like, here's how I would love to use these guys in this way. I'd like to build the offense around this way. And maybe we can get something for Justin Fields and trade market and use that in this way. Like those, I think they're the conversations that I think are most likely to happen. But again, we've talked about it. Be happy if Fields was still here.
Yeah.
I would not be happy if Flus is still here.
The first overall pick changes so much here. It literally gives Poles an out. You know, I know from talking to Bill Zimmerman, he talks a lot about how the Cubs, when they made the change to Joe Madden, the previous Rick Renteria was a good coach, a good manager. He had a team playing better the year they got rid of him. I like to go back to a little further. I'm older than that, so I go back to the Bulls. And when they hired Phil Jackson as the head coach, Doug Collins was a good head coach. He had that team playing good basketball. Jordan liked him, but he was looked at. Look, he's an A to B coach. You know, Phil Jackson's going to be the B to C coach. That's how I see Poles is out. We got the first overall draft pick. You did a good job for us. Thank you. You know, the culture's changed. The players play hard for you. You know, you did not perform up to expectations this year. You know, there is no argument for Flus. He can't come back. Well, you blew 3 historically leads, double-digit leads in the fourth quarter. It's historically garbage, terrible. I'm sorry. There is no excuse for that. We talk about the game plans, Packers game plans, Vikings, bad. Conservative, bad. Flus will be fine if he's fired. He'll get a decent job somewhere right away because his defense has played good this year. He'll be fine. He may even get a second chance as a head man someday. But this franchise, no, A to B, you did your job. Now go out and get yourself the head coach that will take this team to the next level. Because it's not Flus. It sure as hell ain't Getsy. You got to make a change.
Perfect way to leave it, because it's the way that we want it to go. So I'm going to just like send that out into the universe. That's what we're cheering for. We'll see in a couple of weeks if we're right, and then we'll take the decisions after that, and then see what comes. And you know, we'll be there along the way, and it's going to be a fun. Bears are going to dominate the offseason once again, which is going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
So that's fun for everybody. It's definitely fun for us. Hopefully, it's fun for you. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate it, and